The cafe was quiet, almost too quiet. The kind of peace that didn't quite belong on my birthday. I could hear the gentle hum of conversations around me, but my thoughts were loud to ignore. My 30th birthday. This was supposed to be a moment of reflection, a milestone. But as I stepped into the room, everything felt wrong. It felt wrong. My name is Ella Williams, and the truth is, this night wasn't supposed to be about them. It was supposed to be about me, my life, my success, my 30 years of surviving and thriving in a world that tried to dismiss me. I had spent years building something that was mine. My company, my vision, my hard work. But in this room, surrounded by my family, all of that seemed insignificant. Here I was, just the daughter who had left the family business behind. I was the failure, always the one to disappoint. I stood still for a moment, taking in the sight of my family. My mother, Evelyn, with her flawless hair and designer dress, stood by the bar greeting guests with a forced smile. Her eyes briefly met mine before moving on to someone more important. Her gaze said it all. I wasn't worth her attention. And then there was Tommy, my older brother, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, the embodiment of the family's image of success. Tommy, the one who never had to fight for anything. He just got it all. Ella. My mother finally noticed me and called my name, her voice dripping with the kind of sweetness that I knew was only skin deep. It's so wonderful to see you, sweetheart. I smiled, but it felt empty. I could feel the weight of her gaze on me, the thinly veiled judgment. I wasn't good enough. Never had been. Never would be. As I made my way through the crowd, trying to smile at the people who genuinely cared about me, I overheard something that immediately stole the air from my lungs. Tommy, while everyone's here, you should go and change. The word stung, change. I stopped in my tracks. My stomach dropped and my heart began to race. Change. I whispered under my breath. I looked toward my mother, who was now speaking to Tommy in the corner. It wasn't just a casual request. No, it was far deeper than that. It was the unspoken message. The message that said he was worthy of being seen while I wasn't. Tommy didn't even hesitate. He gave her a look, and then, as casually as if it were any other request, he turned and headed toward the back of the cafe to change. His expression that of someone who had always belonged. I stood frozen, unable to ignore the sudden fire that ignited in me. Change? For him? For them? For the family who had always dismissed everything I had ever done? Who had constantly made me feel like my successes weren't real because they didn't fit their image? I turned away from the crowd, my heart pounding in my chest. But I wasn't going to let this night be about them. No, this was going to be about me. I reached for my phone, trying to shake off the anger rising in me. A quick glance at the screen revealed a message from my assistant. They're planning to sell the company. They think you won't find out, but I've got the inside scoop. Your mother and Tommy are already talking to investors. My heart skipped a beat. Sell my company? The one I built from nothing? The one I bled for? No, this wasn't just a betrayal. This was the final straw. I turned my phone off, my mind racing. This was it. The moment I stopped being the invisible sister. I wasn't going to take it anymore. I stepped away from the crowd, unable to shake the heaviness in my chest. My mother's request for Tommy to change still echoed in my mind. Change. It wasn't just about clothes. It was a reminder again that no matter how much I achieved, I would never fit into their image. I walked to the back of the cafe, hoping the silence would help clear my mind. But all I could think about was how much of my life had been spent trying to earn the approval of people who would never appreciate what I had built. I had spent so many years trying to prove myself to them, to make them see me, to make them understand that I wasn't just some rebellious daughter playing at business. But tonight it was different. Tonight I had reached my breaking point. I stood near the back door, staring out at the quiet street, my hand gripping my phone tightly. I wanted to call my lawyer, but the weight of the moment held me back. Selling my company? How could they even think that was okay? How could my mother, the woman who should have been proud of me, so easily dismiss everything I'd worked for? I stared at the message from my assistant again. They think you won't find out. It wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was the final confirmation that they had always seen me as less than. And yet, despite the anger bubbling inside me, a strange calm washed over me. This was my chance. The chance to take control. I could feel my pulse quicken as I typed out a message to my lawyer. We need to move forward. Get the acquisition started. It's time to take back what's mine. As I hit send, I felt the weight of the decision settle deep in my chest. It wasn't just about taking control of my company. It was about showing them. It was about showing my mother, my brother, showing all of them that I was no longer going to play by their rules. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned startled. It was Tommy back from changing, of course. He stood in the doorway, a smug look on his face as he took in the sight of me. The way he looked at me made my stomach twist. It was a mix of pity and arrogance, as if he was the one with all the answers, the one who had everything figured out. He was wearing a designer suit now, something expensive, something his perfect little world required. Perfect Tommy. You look a little lost, Tommy said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. He looked me up and down as if inspecting me, assessing me like I was beneath him. I didn't say anything at first. I wasn't sure I could trust myself to speak without showing the fury that was rising inside me. This was the moment, I thought. The moment when I finally showed him that I wasn't just a side character in his story. I forced a smile. I'm fine, Tommy. Just a little surprised, that's all. Surprised? He raised an eyebrow. You didn't expect Mom to have high standards, did you? His voice was dripping with that familiar, insufferable superiority. You should know by now that the family only accepts the best. I clenched my fists, but I didn't let him see the anger. I had worked too hard to let him break me now. No, I didn't expect that, I said, my voice steady, even though my insides were burning with frustration. But I've learned to accept something more important than your standards, Tommy. I've learned to accept myself. His expression faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered, his face hardening as if he was trying to suppress a laugh. You know, I don't know why you bother. You really think you've built something that matters? He gestured around the cafe. Look at this place. It's cute, but it's nothing. Mom and Dad. They want something bigger, something with real weight. It hit me like a slap in the face. They always thought I was nothing. They always thought that my hard work wasn't enough. That I wasn't enough. But then I realized something. They didn't see me. They didn't see what I had built, or who I had become. And now they were going to pay the price. You're wrong, Tommy, I said, each word sharp and deliberate. I've built more than any of you could ever understand. Tommy laughed, but there was no humor in it. He looked at me like I was delusional, like the idea of me being successful was some kind of joke. You'll never be part of this family, he said coldly. You'll never be enough. That was it. That was the final straw. I took a step closer to him, meeting his gaze for the first time with real confidence. The same confidence that had driven me to build my company, the same confidence that had gotten me through every time they tried to break me. You're wrong about that too, Tommy, I said, my voice clear and steady. You think you've won? You think you have it all? Watch closely because things are about to change. Tommy stared at me, his expression shifting between confusion and something darker. The realization started to settle in. He didn't know what I had planned, and for the first time I could see that he was scared. Scared of what I might do. I turned on my heel and walked away. But as I left the back room, I could hear Tommy's voice, faint but unmistakable, calling after me. You can't just take everything from us, Ella. It's not how things work. But I didn't stop. I was done playing by their rules. Just as I step back into the main room, my phone buzzes again. This time it's not a message. It's a call from my lawyer. His voice filled with urgency. Ella, they've already signed the preliminary agreement with the investors. You need to act now. The sale could go through any minute. I walked through the crowd, my head spinning with the decision I had just made. I was going to take control, but how? How could I possibly stop them when they had already moved so quickly? The agreement had been signed, and the company I had poured my blood and sweat into was on the verge of being taken from me. I paused by the window, the city skyline visible through the cafe's glass walls. It was beautiful, yes, but all I could see now was my empire crumbling. My family's empire. My company, my hard work. It had taken years to build this. Years to prove myself. And yet, here they were, casually trying to sell it off as though it meant nothing. It was absurd. And I couldn't let it happen. I wouldn't let it happen. I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to see Jordan standing there, his expression unreadable. For a second I thought maybe he was going to apologize, Maybe he had seen the fire in my eyes and realized what they were doing was wrong. But no, that wasn't it. Not Jordan. You really think you can take this from us? His words were cold, dismissive, like he had already won. You have no idea what you're up against, Ella. He crossed his arms, his expensive suit catching the light, a symbol of everything I had never been able to match. His perfect life, their perfect life. I tried to keep my composure, but the truth hit me like a freight train. They would never see me as one of them. No matter how successful I became, no matter how much money I made, I would always be the outsider. The disappointment. Their golden son was always going to be the one they trusted. I took a deep breath and squared my shoulders. You're wrong, Jordan. My voice was steady, but there was a fire behind it. You think you can just push me aside because you've been handed everything on a silver platter? I stepped closer, locking eyes with him. I earned everything I have. Jordan laughed. A hollow, mirthless sound. You still don't get it, do you? He said, his smirk widening. Mom and Dad wanted you to join the family business. They gave you a chance. But you rejected it, remember? You walked away. And now you think you're going to take it all back. He shook his head, the arrogance seeping through his every word. You're not part of the family legacy. You never were. The words hit harder than I expected. It was a slap in the face. A reminder that no matter what I built, I would never be accepted. But instead of crumbling, I felt the anger bubble up. No more. You're right, I said slowly, watching as his smile faltered. I'm not part of your family legacy. I'm creating my own. And with that, I turned on my heel and walked away, leaving him standing there speechless. I sat in my office that night, staring out the window at the glowing city below. Everything was still, almost too still. It felt like the calm before the storm. My phone sat on the desk, buzzing with updates from my lawyer, my assistant, and investors who were eager to finalize the deal. But all I could think about was how far they had pushed me, my family, my own flesh and blood. They had tried to sell my dreams, my hard work, like I didn't matter. I pulled up the latest financials on my screen, my company's quarterly numbers shining in front of me. $1.2 billion. That was what my company was worth now. They would never understand. My family wouldn't get it. They had always preferred the safe route, the predictable one. The one where they didn't have to take risks. But that was exactly what set me apart. I took risks. I took every setback, every failure, and turned it into a triumph. I clicked on a folder labeled Acquisitions, pulling up a list of businesses I had bought in the last year. I had been silently building my empire, buying up competitors, moving in silence while they laughed at my so-called little online business. My phone buzzed again. It was a message from my lawyer. They're moving quickly. The deal could close within the next 24 hours. You need to make a decision. I sat there for a moment, staring at the message. The feeling of betrayal ran deep, but beneath it was something else, empowerment. For the first time, I realized how much I had grown. I wasn't just some disappointment anymore. I was Ella Williams, the woman who would own everything, the woman who would take her power back. And as I sat there reflecting on the years of rejection, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let them win. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose that I hadn't felt in years. The weight of my decision was heavy, but it didn't feel like a burden anymore. For once it felt like freedom. I sat at my desk, coffee in hand, staring at the screen in front of me. The acquisition paperwork was already sitting there, waiting for my approval. The deal was moving faster than I expected, and with each new email or message from my lawyer, I realized just how far my family had gone in trying to undermine me. I picked up my phone and texted my lawyer. Let's do it. Send the final papers. I'm taking control. As the message sent, my mind drifted back to last night, to Tommy's smug face when he told me I would never be a part of their family legacy. I wasn't going to be their failure anymore. I had spent so much of my life feeling small, trying to measure up to standards that were never meant for me. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their legacy. I was building my own piece by piece with every decision I made. And this decision would be the one that changed everything. As the day went on, I stayed at my desk, looking over financial reports, reviewing the acquisitions I'd made in the last few months. It felt strangely empowering, like the weight of my family's expectations had been lifted off my shoulders. They thought they could push me aside, dismiss my success, and now I was going to take back what was mine. A knock at the door broke my train of thought. I glanced up, expecting one of my team members, but to my surprise it was Maria, my assistant. She walked in, holding a folder with a look on her face that made my stomach tighten. "There's something you need to see." I gestured for her to sit, my mind racing. Maria wasn't one to look worried, but today she did. She placed the folder on my desk and slid it toward me. I opened it, quickly scanning the contents. It was a list of investors, but they weren't just any investors. They were people my family had been secretly negotiating with. People who had shown interest in my company, without my knowledge. A sense of dread washed over me as I saw the names. This was worse than I thought. They weren't just selling behind my back. They were actively trying to undermine me, to sell the company out from under me before I could act. "They've been trying to get in on your company for months, Ella," Maria said quietly, her voice betraying her concern. "They knew you wouldn't let them get away with it if you found out." I felt my blood boil. Betrayal. I had been right there building everything while they schemed behind my back, trying to profit off what I had created. This was the final straw. I wasn't just going to take control of the company, I was going to make sure they understood what real success looked like. I was going to take everything. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt so betrayed. The reality of the situation hit me harder than I could have imagined. My own family, the ones I trusted most, had been actively planning to sell what I had worked so hard for. The tech company that had redefined me, that had given me the freedom I so desperately needed. They were ready to throw it all away like it was nothing. I stood in front of the window in my office, staring out at the skyline. The city had always been a symbol of possibility, of everything I could achieve. And yet, standing there now, it felt like it was all slipping through my fingers. The betrayal wasn't just about the company, though. It was about everything they had ever said to me, every time they made me feel small. They never believed in me. They never thought I was capable of building anything on my own. To them, I was always going to be the girl who walked away, the girl who made bad decisions. The one who was different. And for the first time I realized that maybe that was what they hated about me. I was different. I didn't conform to their rules. I didn't follow their script. And that made me a threat to everything they thought they controlled. My phone buzzed again, bringing me out of my thoughts. It was another message from Maria. She'd managed to get her hands on a copy of the official sale agreement. They had moved forward faster than I thought. They were selling the company tomorrow. Tomorrow. The words hung in the air as I read them. I had no more time to waste. The deal was almost done. They had almost taken it all away. I stood up from my desk, pacing in the small office. I couldn't let them get away with it. I had spent so many years letting them think I was inferior, letting them think I wasn't capable of real success. But I was done. I called Maria back into the office and handed her the folder. "We're moving forward. Contact the investors, finalize the deal. Let's show them who's in charge." She hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "Got it, Ella." I turned back to the window, watching the city below me. The plan was in motion. I would not only take back my company, I would take everything they held dear. And when it was all over, they would know exactly what it felt like to be on the other side of this. The clock was ticking. I couldn't waste any more time. Every moment felt like I was losing ground. The sale of my company was almost a done deal, and my family thought they were going to get away with it. But they didn't know me, not the way they thought they did. I had spent my life proving them wrong. And now, more than ever, I realized the true extent of their betrayal. They weren't just selling my company, they were selling me out. The thought of it sent a cold wave of determination through me. I paced back and forth in my office, the floor beneath me seeming to echo the pounding of my heart. My lawyer had texted me that the deal was almost done, and I needed to make my move before it was too late. The idea of them, my own family, taking my work and treating it like it was just some commodity to be traded felt like a slap in the face. I glanced at the paperwork in front of me. This wasn't just about the company anymore. This was about my identity. The way they had always seen me as less than, the way they always assumed I couldn't make it on my own, the way they thought I would always be their failure. It wasn't just business. It was personal. And tonight I was going to make sure they knew just how far they'd pushed me. I had already arranged everything. I'd made sure that the right investors were on my side. I had contacted a group of powerful backers who would help me secure control of the company and the family's legacy. They had no idea what was about to hit them. They thought they could leave me out in the cold? I'd spent years being the shadow, the forgotten sister. But no more. I was done with that. Tonight I would take what was rightfully mine. And when they looked at me again, they wouldn't just see the girl they ignored. They'd see someone who had everything they never believed I could have. I walked over to the large glass window that framed the city skyline. The lights twinkling below. This city, this life was built on decisions like the one I was about to make. It wasn't about power or money. It was about vision, something they had always dismissed in me. I picked up the phone and dialed the number I had been avoiding all day. The one from my family's lawyer. When he answered, I wasted no time. "I need the paperwork for the acquisition," I said, my voice firm. "Let's get this done." The lawyer hesitated, but only for a moment. He knew what was at stake. He'd seen the writing on the wall, and so had I. They were mine now. "I'll send everything over, Miss Williams. Just give the final approval, and it's done." I hung up the phone and sat back in my chair, closing my eyes for a moment. The weight of the decision was heavy, but it felt right. I was taking back control. The time had come. The deal was closing. They were going to lose everything. I could feel the air thickening with tension as I stood in front of the large glass doors to the family's conference room. My phone buzzed with a message from my lawyer, the final documents. The acquisition was now official. I paused before walking inside, my fingers tightening around the door handle. This wasn't just a business deal anymore. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. The moment when my family realized that they had underestimated me, that they had pushed me too far too many times. I stepped inside the room and immediately the air felt thick with discomfort. My mother and Tommy were already sitting at the table, a stack of papers in front of them. Their faces were tight, their expressions unreadable. They were nervous. "Good. Ella, what are you doing here?" Tommy's voice was condescending, like he already knew what was coming but couldn't believe it. He was still the golden child, always trying to act like he had it all figured out. I smiled, but it wasn't out of kindness. It was out of something much darker. "I think you already know why I'm here," I said, my voice low and steady. "It's time for you to realize something, Tommy. I own this company now." The words hung in the air like a bomb. Tommy froze, his face pale, the color draining from his cheeks. "What are you talking about?" he demanded, his voice shaky. I reached into my bag and pulled out the final acquisition papers, the ones I had just signed. The ones that proved it was now mine. This company. My company. It's mine now. I laid the papers in front of him, the truth crashing over him like a wave. His eyes widened in disbelief. He looked over at my mother, searching for some sign of understanding, some explanation. But she sat there in stunned silence, her face as pale as his. "You can't just take everything from us, Ella," Tommy said through clenched teeth. "It's not how things work." I leaned in, my voice quiet but filled with authority. "No, Tommy. It's exactly how things work. You thought you could take everything from me. You thought I was a joke. But now I'm in control." The next few days passed in a blur. I barely slept. The adrenaline was keeping me awake, pushing me forward, forcing me to act faster than I ever thought I could. The acquisition was complete. My company was finally mine in every sense of the word. But that wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. The fallout had begun. The family's reputation, so carefully cultivated for years, was crumbling. It was happening, and it was happening fast. My father had already begun calling in favors, trying to convince everyone that the sale was a misunderstanding. But the investors, the ones who had thought my family would sell it all for a quick profit, were backing me now. They saw real potential, something my family had always overlooked. They saw me as a true businesswoman, not the failure they had painted me to be. I sat at my desk, looking at the stack of papers in front of me. The contracts, the buyouts, the shareholders' rights, all of it was now mine. The weight of it settled on me like a blanket, but this wasn't the time to pause. No, this was the time to make sure my family understood what had happened. As I prepared for the upcoming board meeting, I received an unexpected message. It was from Tommy's lawyer. "We are looking into your recent acquisition of Parker Enterprises. You've overstepped your boundaries, and we will fight for control of the company." I almost laughed at the message. Tommy fighting for control? It was delusional. My family had underestimated me at every turn. They thought their name, their legacy, could protect them from the consequences of their actions. But I was about to teach them that there was more to success than a last name. I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. I had taken control of the company, but there were still strings I hadn't fully cut. Tommy's friends, the ones who had been around my family for years, still thought they could sway the future of Parker Enterprises. They didn't understand that I had already taken control. I had already won. But they were coming for me. I knew it. They were plotting behind the scenes just like my family had done for so long. And now I was about to flip the script. I wasn't just going to take the company from them, I was going to destroy everything they had built. I scheduled the meeting with the investor. I didn't know what he wanted, but I wasn't about to let him pull the strings for Tommy and my family. This was my final act. The moment I would prove that true power didn't come from wealth or name, came from vision and control. The meeting was set for 4 p.m. The boardroom was sleek, modern, and everything I had built my company to be. I walked in with confidence, but my nerves were on edge. This wasn't just a business negotiation, it was personal. And for the first time, I realized that I wasn't just fighting for control of a company. I was fighting for my future. For the respect I'd always deserved but never got from my family. The door opened, and in walked the investor, a man in his early 50s. He was wearing a suit that screamed wealth. But it wasn't the right kind of wealth. It was the kind that tried to hide the lack of substance underneath. He extended his hand, but I didn't take it immediately. I stared at him, my eyes piercing through the facade. "I assume you know why I asked to meet?" he asked, sitting down without waiting for me to respond. "I know exactly why you're here," I replied, my voice calm, measured. "You think you can buy into my company just like you bought into my family's name. But that's not how it works anymore." He blinked, clearly surprised by my boldness. "You've made some significant moves, Ella." I smiled, leaning forward slightly. "I'm not here for your approval. I'm here because this company is mine now." He raised an eyebrow, obviously not expecting me to play hardball. "You think you can just take over without any consequences?" I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms, feeling the power shift toward me. "Consequences? There are always consequences, but I've already calculated the risks. You're too late to the game. The deal is done. It's already in motion. I'm in control. And you're not." Asterisk, asterisk. He sat in silence for a moment, clearly processing what I was saying. Then with a deep sigh, he finally spoke. "You know, Tommy's never going to let you get away with this. He'll fight you until the very end. Let him try." The words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. I wasn't the scared little girl they used to belittle anymore. I had learned the lessons they never taught me. And now I was ready to teach them all a lesson in humility.